Hello?
Hi, is this Andrea Tantaros?
It is.
Hi, this is Tish Bowling with Remnant X Radio. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, but I suppose it's afternoon where you are.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, we have you on the air here, and so we are getting ready to discuss your new book, Tied Up in Knots. Are you ready?
Terrific. I'm ready to go.
Great. Okay, wonderful. So first question, a very obvious one. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, as a woman who has been, I would say, a direct beneficiary of all the fruits of feminism, the good, I also started to realize that there's some bad that goes along with it, with anything. You know, nothing's perfect. So while I tip my hat to the feminists, as you get older and you start to listen to other women, you think, okay, maybe there were some unintended consequences, that we were brainwashed a little bit to think that everything would just be perfect and wonderful. But there have been some downsides, like anything. And so I wrote this book for not just women, but for men, because it's been affecting men as well. And to point out some of the things that I think the movement got wrong. And one of them is telling women that we didn't need men. Now, there's a group of the feminist movement, Betty Friedan, who wrote The Feminine Mystique, and Gloria Steinem were part of the, I don't want to call them the man-haters, but they had this belief that women had to tear down the patriarchy in order to get, quote, equality. So it turned into this hostile, almost adversarial, competitive relationship between the sexes. And it wasn't really about being equal, but being better. And so the rise of women came at the expense of men. And then there was this other group, the Helen Gurley Browns, who is the editor-in-chief of Cosmo magazine. We all know her. She wrote the book, All the Single Ladies. She also told women that you don't need a man and to put off marriage and motherhood like the other group. But she said, don't tear down the patriarchy. Just use your sexuality to navigate it. And that has caused this whole other, issue, which then goes into the third point, and that is we had to trade, in what I call in the book the power trade, everything that was so powerful about being a woman, the ability to have kids, the ability to civilize men, all these things that feminists said, oh, childbearing is such a burden. Why would you want to do that? All of those things, and they said we had to do it while acting like men. So women have now been conditioned to emulate men, right? We have to act like them in the boardroom, in the bedroom, bar hop like men, work like men, negotiate like men. Problem is we're not men. So women are conflicted in all of these areas, and they have double the responsibility with all these wonderful new opportunities. So we could strangle Gloria Steinem for all these opportunities. But that means double the stress and also double the misery. And if we're unhappy, then of course the men that we love, that we're in relationships with, or that we want to be in relationships with, well, they're going to have effects too.
Oh, certainly. Certainly. And I would say, even by extension, if you are married, if you have children, the children are certainly going to feel that as well. And they're going to catch on to that because they're very quick and they do see things. So, yeah. Now, you put forth the notion that women are advised to be like men. And certainly you can see that all throughout society today. Do you think the converse is also true, that men are acting more traditionally like women had in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think that men, they really don't want to, but they've been wussified and emasculated. And, they're not going to stand up and have a march like women do. They don't have men's rights organizations. There's a couple men's rights advocates, but they don't have the organization that women do. And that's not really how men are wired. They're not going to stand up and say, what about us, and let's pen an editorial about how we're being, emasculated by society, and why is every man a doofus, and the dad is always the idiot in the commercials or the sitcoms. Men don't say that. So it's left for women to say, which is a thing that I hammer pretty hard in the book.
Right. Now, have you noticed, because I have noticed this as a mom and a wife who has more of a traditional view on things. I have worked outside the home. I've worked inside the home. I homeschooled my son. I've been a stay-at-home mom. I've kind of been all across the board. But I have certainly noticed that when women do, step up and say, hey, wait a second, some things are kind of askew here, and I don't really think that it's a wise idea to be, as you said, wussifying men. Do you notice that women get backlash for that?
I think they do, but I think the most important thing isn't just women getting backlash, because I do think that it tends to be accepted in society. Like it tends to be okay to make the dad the piñata, or the punching bag, the man the punching bag.
Right.
And we see this with the Family Guy. I remember Married with Children. Al Bundy was such a loser. When dads actually have real value. I actually think that what they're hurting is they're getting the worst out of their man. And that's just a basic fundamental principle. Like feminists complain that their husbands or men in society were demeaning to women, like, honey, iron my pants, where's my damn dinner? Well, then why are we emulating them? Then why are we then becoming the ones who are oppressing or the oppressors rather than the oppressed? And that's what happens with power. And the power trade that I talk about in chapter 1 is, we traded all that power for the power that men had. That's not feminism, becoming what they are and then doing exactly to them what they did to us. It's just a human nature thing. If you respect and love the man in your life, you're going to get that tenfold and vice versa.
Yes. I think you put that so well. I have a 20-year-old son. He's a college student, and I know my husband and I have really tried to hammer that point with him his entire life, that the pendulum has swung so far the other way, where, like you said, it used to be where it wasn't just that men were powerful, but it was a lording the power over their women and domineering them. And now we've gone to the opposite extreme, where it's women domineering and lording it over their men. And I don't want that for my son. We didn't want him to see that in our home, and I don't want him to experience that, out in the real world. But certainly he has absolutely seen that, in college and in the workplace. He's already seen that, the whole attitude of not just I am woman, hear me roar, but I am woman and you are man, and therefore you are under my feet. And it's kind of shocking.
It is. And I think the most shocking part of writing this book was, and also the part where I really sort of exhaled and thanked God that I had gone through my teens and my 20s without the way culture is now. We've seen such a coarsening, and it's become so sexualized that young people today, they don't even know what a date is. People don't approach each other in bars. Men just sit there on Tinder and swipe through women, and women will just sit there and wait for guys to approach them like women used to, and guys won't do it. They don't have to. They don't have to put any work into it. Women took monogamy off the table and commitment off the table. So if women are acting like men, and women are the keeper traditionally of the values, and we're the ones that civilize men, if we're not doing that, then there's no to civilize them. So all of a sudden we're just playing by their rules, which again is the exact opposite of what I know Steinem and company wanted.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I think that is such a key point. I know that there was a quote, and who said it now is totally escaping me, and it's from the Stone Ages, I'm sure. But the basic gist of the quote was that when the women in society become like the men in society, society is basically doomed. And I think that's kind of what you're hinting at a little bit in your book. We haven't just become feminists. We've kind of, torn men down at our expense, and that's kind of a sad thing, I think.
Very sad, and it's making women unhappy because we're seeing the effects of that. I mean, why would men, as one man told me, men were very honest in the interviews that I did. They said, okay, if you guys are being told, for example, by Glamour magazine and other magazines, they published a list last year, 10 ways to make your man happy. And feminists went berserk and said, how dare you do this? And I thought, well, what if the list was 10 ways to make your woman happy? We love it. Why is it different? And then you look at the suggestions, and it's nothing terribly egregious. It's like, be nice to his friends, make him a sandwich if he's hungry. If I'm hungry, my best beloved makes me a sandwich. It doesn't mean that he's, Mr. Belvedere, my butler. It just means that he loves me and I'm hungry. And so the question I ask in return is, well, what's the alternative? If someone you love, be it your husband or your brother or your mom, is hungry, you're not going to send him to the Quiznos down the street and tell him to pound sand. You're gonna try and fix it. So at its core, it's kindness. So if women aren't being kind to their partners, and they're being needy in the sense that nowadays, women want men to. They want them to watch The Notebook with them. They want them to be romantic. They want these traditional dating rituals. Men are saying, wait a minute, you told us you didn't need us. You told us not to open the door for you. You told us you didn't want us to pay. Now you're telling us you do, and you're not being kind to us in return. So men are very honest. They'll tell me, like, why would I get into a relationship? If I can just have sex with multiple partners because of Tinder and you girls are going along with it, why would I get into a relationship where I have a woman who doesn't respect me and won't make me a sandwich if I'm hungry? Like, what's the point of that?
Oh, yeah. Women have dug themselves a huge old hole. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got one final question for you before we let you go, and that is, what solutions do you propose to help women free themselves from the knots in which we've tied ourselves?
Well, you know, I never tell women what to do. This book is really just, you know, as someone who grew up really as sort of the daughters of the Betty Friedan's, you know, I did have a lot of opportunities. And I did honestly take every directive. I have played like a girl. I've manned up. I've cried at work. I've not cried at work. I've tried to be the one who paid the dinner bill and let the man pay. So I've done everything they've told me to do and the traditional way of doing it. So I make recommendations. I can tell you clearly what works and what doesn't work. But, and it sounds corny and it sounds very Dr. Phil-ish, but the reason I love this topic is because everybody has an opinion, because everybody is in some kind of relationship or wants to be. No one wants to be all alone for the rest of their life. And you don't need to wait for the administration to act. You don't need to say, I wish the Republican Party would act on this. This is something that everyone can do. I did it myself, where I just realized, why am I listening to feminist doctrine? Why am I trying to do everything myself? And I have this great career. I keep, you know, having disappointments in my personal life. What am I doing wrong? And you sort of stop and you have this awakening where you say, I'm going to start listening to my gut and my heart and my head, and they're all telling me I do want to get married and have kids. Like, I do have a man in my life that loves me. So I'm going to let him put me on a pedestal and cherish me and do all these things for me and help me. And it has made me not just happier, but it's made me so much better at my job. And that is the one thing that Sheryl Sandberg, not a conservative, advised women, if you really want to lean in, you got to pick the right partner. So I fished the culture for all the best wisdom I could find from non-traditional messengers like Sandberg and Beyonce and Lady Gaga, women that conservatives would never quote. I put them in this book because they're espousing traditional messages, and I think people will be surprised. They're saying the same thing that I am. And if everyone just listens to their gut, then women can untie the knots themselves, and they can be happier in their lives, and the men in their lives can be happier too. And who doesn't want that?
Oh, amen. Great answer. Great answer. And where can we find the book?
Well, it's at barnesandnoble.com or harpercollins.com, amazon.com, or any bookstore. I know Barnes & Noble has them right on the new release table when you walk in, but it's already a bestseller. And for any parent listening, it's a great book for girls graduating from high school or college. I wish I had this book when I went to college or when I was going into my out of college into the working world. It's a great book, and it's the book that I wished was out there, and so I wrote it myself. And it's funny, it's provocative, it's eye-opening. It's not your typical conservative book, but I'm very grateful for all the support.
Well, I thought the same thing that you just said, that I think it's an awesome graduation gift, and like you said, for women or for men.
Yeah, it's for both, for sure, at any age, too, any age.
Well, great. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us today, and I wish you great success with your book.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure has been all mine. This is really fun. Thank you.
Great. Take care. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And there you have it, folks. That was Andrea Tantaros. Her book, Tied Up in Knots, How Getting What We Wanted Made Women Miserable, is available at barnesandnoble.com, harpercollins.com, Amazon, and basically, like she said, wherever books are sold. Thanks for listening.